Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another session as part of Alumni Talk series of the Biotech Research Club. So today we have with us Mr. Suresh Balsubramani, who is an alumnus of IIT Madras and graduated with a BTech degree in chemical engineering in 1976. While he preferred math to biology in school, he has spent his entire career in biology. He is a consummate corporate professional and has significant interdisciplinary experiences in plant health, animal health, and human health businesses. He has met customers personally in over 50 countries around the world, and today he will define possible opportunities in the industry and help students position themselves for a rich career ahead. I request everyone to turn off their videos and mute themselves for the duration of the talk, unless you have a question, where you can unmute yourselves or also post your question in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, so that gets me started. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes before I go into the presentation. Maybe I will go into the presentation directly. Hang on one second. Tell me if you can see the entire screen. And then I got to go to do that, share, and then I go here. And is that clear now? I mean, can you see it very well?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes, yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've said career opportunities in biotechnology. I made a statement informally while we were all waiting, and I want to just reiterate that one more time before I start the presentation. As you can observe, the presentation talks about opportunity in the biotechnology industry. Okay, it's fundamentally industry. And I said industry gives you one thing which academia will never give you, which is money. You need money to do research, you need money to progress science, you need money for so many things, and industry has an abundance of that. So that's something that I want to leave behind in your mind, okay? So what are we going to talk about? And, Professor Karthik Raman talked about, you remember, the future. And when I am not looking at today, I'm looking at the next 20 years at least. Why 20? Because it probably might be the half-life of your career, roughly, give or take. So if you're assuming you're all in your 20s right now, you'll go to about 60, 70, whatever, and roughly about 20 years. That's the story. So I'm going to present the biotechnology opportunity the way I see it. I'm going to spend a little time on you, the personality, okay? And I'm going to basically say why biotechnology is a career, how best to prepare for it and leverage the opportunity, okay? So that's the whole premise of today's presentation. Let me set the scene for you. Before I get to that, maybe I should talk. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Okay. Let me set the scene for you. The scene is very clearly, the year was probably late 90s, okay, or just about early 2000, okay? This is a personal story, genetically modified. You guys know this much better than I know this, but I'm going to put it down anyway. Is a technology that involves inserting a DNA of a genome into an organism, correct? To produce a GM plant, new DNA is transferred into plant cells, okay? Usually, the cells are then grown in the tissue culture where they're developed into plants. The seeds of the produced by these plants will inherit the new DNA. What happened was the plasmid, and I've got this thing there, Monsanto used a gene gun to insert a gene called a Roundup Ready gene. Okay, Roundup was a chemical pesticide which was being sold by them. Why do I say it's a personal story? I was at that point in time based in the US, and I've seen the miracle of biology. US has roughly, at least at that time, it has 70 million acres of soybean and 70 million acres of corn. Okay, so that's the scope of the thing. 70 million acres of each soybean and corn. So all through the Midwest of the US, it's either soybean country or corn country. That's all there is to it. You will not see anything else. We were a company. I used to work for a company called American Cyanamid, Cyanamid. American Cyanamid had basically a 70% market share, okay, in with a chemical pesticide called Pursuit. 70% market share. So any farmer that you would see in the Midwestern states of the US who grows corn or soybean, particularly soybean, we were dominant out there. Okay. And then you had Monsanto introduce this genetically modified soybean. So the first year, what do you think people would say? People in my company, particularly, especially I was attending these meetings, within the company, the senior most management would say, forget it. This is genetically modified. It won't stay. It'll go away. It's a fad. It'll go away. And then Monsanto went out trying to do, for the first year, they probably did out of 70 million acres of soybean, they might have done 500,000 acres of soybean. This is early 2000, mind you. Then you saw the next year they did 3 million acres of soybean. Then the next year they did 7 million acres of soybean. And it went on and on and on. Today, 90% of the soybean in America is genetically modified. Okay. The point of the matter is that at the end of the day, the decision was made by the farmer who said to himself or herself, they said, wow, I can see technology. It makes my life so much easier. Why would I stick to an old-fashioned chemical pesticide if I can simplify my life? That's the story. So they adopted that technology. Monsanto, as a company, which is based in St. Louis in Missouri, just took over our lunch. I saw the phase of the downward slide in that complete. Our market share went from 70% to almost zero. We did maintain about a single-digit percentage, 5-6% market share, but that's about it. And then, of course, soybean, the genetically modified soybean went into Brazil, went into Argentina. These are all large soybean producers. Okay, so the major soybean grown in the world was all genetically modified. And then it went into corn, then it went into cotton. It just went on and on and on. So I have seen personal stories. I've seen the power of technology, of genetic technology, okay, in a practical field across my career. And you saw the thing happen in front of your eyes. 3, 4, 5 years, we were just wiped out. That's the personal story that I wanted to share. Okay. So what happened when you say innovation? Innovation fundamentally solves problems, okay? And then it gains traction. If we think of the two huge innovations that have happened in 2000 to 2020, things that have helped us to be faster, cheaper, easier, more productive, more creative, innovations that have left to cost deflation, what would they be? Does anybody want to take a guess? At least one of the two or two? There's no wrong answer for this.
CRISPR.
Yeah, CRISPR. CRISPR is pretty recent. I'm talking 2000 to 2020. Yes, CRISPR is definitely, but CRISPR, because you're a biologist, you're thinking of it. I would put CRISPR in that bucket. What else? Anything else?
Printing.
When I check into a hotel room now, I'm not looking at beds or toilets. Or there's something else that I'm looking for when I check into a hotel room. What do you think I'm looking for?
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi, absolutely. Without Google search, we would be dead. I mean, I can starve you for a meal. I can say I'm not going to give you dinner, but if I'm not going to give you Google search, anything and everything, I think is all, at least it would be up there if it's not the number one or the number two. Huge innovations is one of them is Google. And the other thing I would categorize the whole thing as social media, whether it is Facebook or Instagram or Snap or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever. It's brought the world closer together. I mean, I wouldn't put it in the same category, but I think Google search is almost like air and water and everything else, right? I mean, you know, anything and everything, I get the answers out of Google search. So that's the way I see it. So that's what happened between 2000 and 2020. Okay. I want us to listen to this video. This is about a 3-minute video. Okay. And I wanted to, this is a person, I hope it comes through very clearly. This is a person by the name of Kathy Wood. Okay. This is a financial person talking about biotechnology. Let's listen. I hope it comes through. Let's see what happens. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Let's watch this, okay?
We think that
Sorry, 1 minute.
much of the decision making in healthcare is a function of either guesswork or experience or gut. And we think that as we learn more and more about the human genome, that the answers are going to become more precise and the cures will then follow. The genomic revolution is going to change healthcare as we know it, partly because it's deflationary. The healthcare sector has never experienced the good kind of deflation. All healthcare analysts know about deflation is patent cliffs, and that's really, really bad. Technology usually brings with it good deflation. And so what we're seeing from DNA sequencing is costs falling about 30 to 40% per year. And we see the first human genome was sequenced for a cost of almost $3 billion and took 13 years of computing power. We're now down to, well, less than $1,000 per human genome in a day or so. And by 2021, we think we'll be at $100, so that DNA sequencing will become part of our annual physicals. And DNA sequencing will be able to identify where our genes have mutated and why we have certain kinds of diseases. We're also, with CRISPR technology and CAR T technology, going to learn about ways of actually curing disease. CRISPR technology, CRISPR-Cas9 specifically, is gene editing. Now, gene editing is really not new. We had a gene editing technology called zinc finger nuclease, and that has achieved some success, but it's extremely expensive, about $5,500 per base pair of DNA that's edited. Today, CRISPR-Cas9 can edit at $30 per base pair, so huge drop in the costs. Gene editing is exactly what it says, editing. It's cutting, activating, silencing, regulating. We call it the molecular Swiss Army knife. In essence, gene editing can reprogram the mutations in our DNA. Our DNA starts out usually just fine, and then mutations happen along the way, and now we have a technology that can edit them away. To give you a sense of how important this is, only 5% of the monogenic diseases, so the diseases caused by one gene, only 5% of them are treatable today. With gene editing, all of them potentially will be treatable. And then beyond that, monogenic is only 2% of all the genes out there. So if I were to tell you that if we were able to solve all the problems for people with monogenic disease, that's a $2 trillion opportunity, can you imagine how big the polygenic opportunity is going to be? This is really one of the most exciting investment ideas we have ever experienced.
So this is not me talking, right? I mean, I purposely put that in. This is a finance person talking. She talks of a $2 trillion opportunity. And if there's one thing that COVID has taught us, which is that you do not ignore human health. With 7 billion people living in the world, You just cannot afford to take health for granted. Okay, it's a huge learning the whole world has. Okay, and therefore, as we move forward, and if you look at 2020 to 2040, I genuinely believe that biotechnology is here to stay. Okay, uh, that's one piece. Before that, let me just spend a minute on this personality piece. Okay, I want to spend a minute on the personality piece, giving you two dimensions. Okay, the first one is a little about myself, just a little, which is I grew up much like, or probably, much like many of you. I grew up in a small 30 square meter apartment in Mumbai. Okay, very small apartment in Mumbai. Okay, I was shy, I was introverted, I thought science was everything, I thought math was everything, and that's the personality. The reason I'm telling you that is I'm much like you, and then you saw the transformation that industry made to you. Okay, uh, but I had two things going my way, and that's very, very important. I clearly feel that. One was the fact that I was willing to do things which excited me, as opposed to willing to do things in which the rest of the members in the class were doing. So if everybody was finding jobs in Hindustan Lever and in Tata Motors and in this, remember, I was an engineering class, okay, and in this and in that, I said to myself, I want to pursue something. And for whatever reason, I ended up, my first role was in agriculture and in plant health. So it's a very interesting thing. The reason I'm telling you this is, uh, e- e- uh, each of us, when we look at our friends in class, we would always say X is doing this, Y is doing that, Z is doing that. I think the most important thing, the single most important thing in this, if I were to give you this, that I want you to take away out of this, is that each of us have unique strengths, and you spend all the time understanding what your strengths are. There is nothing more important than finding out what your strengths are. And your strengths are not the same as your closest friend. Your strengths are not the same as your parents. Your strengths are not the same as what your class is doing. If you would like a path, go down that path, and you have to discover yourself. It's a question of asking yourself, what am I good at? And I cannot emphasize enough. You have to identify your strengths. The more time you spend identifying your strengths, the better off you are. It's like a trump in a card game. You have a trump card, and then therefore things would be very nice. Extremely important. Each of us is unique, and we have to understand and identify our strengths. People don't spend enough time on it, but as you progress more and more through your career, you realize, oh my God, I wish I had known that I was good at this. I wish I had known I was good at that kind of a thing. So please remember that. Why am I perfect? Not a good person to talk about this. I have spent, like Neha mentioned, I've spent 40 years in biology, in plant health, which is diseases of plants, bacterial diseases, fungal diseases, and then, of course, insecticides and herbicides, plant health, animal health being, poultry, birds with poultry, that is both chicken as well as layer poultry. And then I've spent pigs, and then I've spent cattle, dairy cattle and beef cattle. And remember, I've spent a lot of years outside. So a lot of that. And of course, most importantly, companion animals, dogs and cats. So I've spent a lot of time in animal health businesses. The single largest, of course, is plant health. And then I've spent time in animal health diseases. Their diseases, how do you take care of them? What are the causal factors? How do you meet veterinarians? All that wonderful stuff. And the last decade or so, I've spent time in human health. So it's kind of somewhat unusual to see a person who spent time in plant health, in animal health, and in human health. So I call it the health, completely the health spectrum. Anything living, and as long as you want to grow, keep it healthy, I've spent the time in. Okay, so that's why I think I'm reasonably well equipped to talk about it. Okay, again, let me come back and tell you, The single most important thing is please spend the time understanding your strengths, finding out who you are. It's not a question of X said this or Y said that. Let's go out, but we'll talk about it as we go through the presentation. Okay. The other video, this is about a 1-minute video, and I genuinely think we should watch this as well. And then we are on to the core of the presentation. Okay, I hope we can get this through.
It's beautiful. Go play in your bedroom.
This is a dream race we're about to witness. The most incredible lineup ever. In lane 1 is Jesse Owens, the world record holder of 1936. That's Calvin Smith. He's in lane 7. In lane 6, Carl Lewis, the greatest athlete of the 20th century. Leroy Burrell is in lane 2. 9.85 is his world record time. In lane 3 is Maurice Green. Lane 5, Asafa Powell, the history maker. And there's the great man, Usain Bolt, still the world record holder at 9.58 seconds.
A lot of legends have come before me. This is my time. But I know there will be another. And that's the way it should be. Because good enough will never change the world.
I just wanted to, when I'm talking about the entire presentation today, there is one fundamental premise, and that premise is that good enough will not change the world. So if I was sitting on your shoes, and that's why I'm saying the entire focus is on you, is on discovering yourself, finding out your strengths, and leveraging that as much as we can. So you're sitting on gold when you're sitting in biotechnology, honestly. And I'm saying combine that with your strengths. The combination can be mind-boggling. It's just incredible. Okay, let's go on. So I'm looking at thinking future. First thing is I'm thinking not what is popular today. What will the world look like 20 years from now? Thinking future and thinking industry. Okay, the future in my mind, and when I say future, I'm talking of a career for you guys. She's about T0, which is today, plus 40. Half-life is about T0 plus 20. Okay. We don't operate in the world that has existed today. We're looking at what the world will be 20 years from now. So this is useful to you whether you're choosing industry as part of plan A, industry careers as part of plan A. Some people, industry careers is the way to go. So that's part of plan A. If it is not plan A, then you have to at least understand in the industry careers. Okay, and that's part of plan B. Or some people say, you know what, I want to spend some time in academia, I want to spend some time in industry, I want to zigzag and have some fun and make the necessary switches. Whatever be your thing, I think it's a good understanding and appreciation of industry makes a huge difference as you progress for the next 20 years. And that's why this whole presentation is based on. So, you've probably seen this. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but you're basically trying to find the sweet spot between what you love, what you're good at, what can be paid for, and what the world needs. That's the sweet spot you're trying to say. The Japanese call it ikigai. Okay, and that's what you're trying to do as you define your career. And remember, we might not get everything right. We have no control on that. But at least from an effort perspective, at least from a clarity of thought perspective, we know where we are going. And you know what? At the end of the day, if it doesn't work out the way we wanted it to work out, that's fine. You have an experience curve that you feel proud about because you've experienced various things. Okay, that's the way I see it. Again, I don't want to go too much into this, but I see cell as the common denominator, and I'm extremely bullish on the future. I said from anatomy to botany to whatever be your discipline, there's one common denominator, and that's the cell. Bullish in the future of biotechnology. Why? Because many unsolved human needs. Okay, when I talk of the third alphabet, the word C is a dangerous alphabet for most people in their lives because it means carcinoma, right? And you say, oh my God. So there is so much of unsolved human need that, biotechnology has wonderful opportunities. Why is biotechnology so exciting in the next 20 years that it did not in the last 20? Key enablers are the low cost of computing. You know it much more than I do. And the new innovations in sequencing genomes and in editing. Okay. When I've had conversations with Professor Raman, I've clearly indicated to him, that my own personal feeling is it's safe to say the next 20 years will belong to biotechnology, much like the last 20 belong to technology. Okay. Uh, so that's the deal. Sorry, where did I go? So when I talk biotechnology industry, I'm not necessarily restricting myself to human. I'm talking of all the three disciplines, anything living. Human, nowadays people divide it into human, which is life sciences and healthcare, and of course, the whole solving problems and as it pertains to human beings. But then there's a lot of applications, particularly when you're talking of CRISPR gene, when it comes to plant and when it comes to animals, veterinary, companion animals, as well as farm animals. Okay. Okay. In my mind, what does a formal education give me? Yes, it gives me a degree, a BTech or a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. But more importantly, I think it gives me an ability to think analytically. Okay. Gives us the ability to use data and connecting the dots. So I'm able to say, oh, this happened and that also happened. Is there a correlation between the two? So it gives us the ability to think in a systematic manner whereby you're able to connect the dots. And most importantly, it gives us the ability to problem solve. Okay. Determine possible causes as to why it happened. And remember, COVID has been a fantastic example. We started off in March 2020 with no clue what the hell is happening. And then now it's been a year later now, we have a very, very good idea. We're still learning, but we have a very good idea as to what exactly happened. Identify the issues, prioritize what is important, what is not important, change our hypothesis as we go along, evaluate alternate solutions. And now, of course, the vaccine is giving us significant amount of protection. Okay. So that whole problem solving ability is what we all possess because we've had education from IIT. But I'm saying you're only just begun. Okay. The IIT degree is a base degree. I do not view it as the end all. I view it as the beginning of a opportunity. You need the foundation, and it's given us the foundation to think analytically, to be able to connect the dots, and to be able to solve problems. Okay. It has to be supplemented by self-learning and enriched with interdisciplinary thought and ideas. Okay. Remember, I am a chemical engineer. I've not practiced chemical engineering for a day after I left because I got into biology. So that interdisciplinary thinking, you can't say, oh, that's not biotechnology, so I won't spend time on it. Take elements from mathematics, take elements from chemistry, take elements from wherever you can take, because at the end of the day, when you provide a solution to the customer, it is all, it's an interdisciplinary thinking that gets us further in our career. Okay. What am I saying? I'm saying what you have is much more than a biotech degree or a biology degree. You probably have love for math. Some people have love for math. Some people don't particularly care for math. They're okay, not too great. Some people have a love for chemistry. Some people have a love for technology. Find out what you really love to do. And it's important because you can pick up elements of this when you talk of the interdisciplinary thing. The next piece that I want to spend time on is please evaluate yourself beyond your degree. Some people like sport. Some people like music. Some like dance. Some like painting. Some like cooking. Each of these gives us skill sets which are incredibly important. And I don't want to poo-poo this. Particularly important for me to mention that these are very, very vital in making the whole you. It's not a question of just having a degree from a leading institute. No, it's being much more than that. So, for example, if somebody tells me that, I had a conversation, this is an interesting one. I had a conversation with a startup yesterday, and I had never talked to that startup founder. I talked to him yesterday. We had a WhatsApp call which ran about 30 minutes. And when he sent me his WhatsApp number, in the DP, okay, you have, I could see him cycling, okay, I mean, so, and then my first question to him was, I said, Rahul, so you looks like you know cycling very, sorry, you do a lot of cycling. And then he went on into how he did 150 miles in a good weekend of cycling and blah, 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 and on and on. To me, that shows tenacity, it shows perseverance, and it shows a positive can-do attitude. So, so I know before even he starts that a person who can cycle for 150 miles or kilometers rather has so much of ability as an individual to contribute, to any project that he does. So started off on a very nice footing, and of course we had a great conversation. So what I want you to do also is to discover and understand and put down what you're good at. It could be sport, music, dance, paint, anything. And there are several things which I've not mentioned here, remember. And some people just love being around people, okay? And some people don't. It's okay. It doesn't matter. There's no good or bad in these things. But as long as you're understanding your strengths, okay? It's being flexible. Some some people, if you love being around people, what you're basically saying is I'm flexible, I'm sociable, etc. Some people like writing, great communicators. It doesn't matter how good a scientist you are. If you're not a great communicator, you better sharpen your communication skills. Immensely important, because you have to say what you got to say succinctly, very clearly. Okay. Some people demonstrate a lot of initiative. There are some people, okay, who will say, when they say they'll be there at 8 o'clock, they are there at 7:58, and you can count on them unless something catastrophic has happened. I love people with a lot of initiative. People who are willing to try new things. People who are willing to fail. Remember, I'm sitting in the middle of Silicon Valley. The whole culture of Silicon Valley is try, fail, iterate. Try, fail, iterate. Try, fail, iterate. And that's why they win. Because at the end of the day, they're not afraid to say, I messed up. Let me try again. Let me try this now. Let me try that now. So fundamentally, the whole process of initiative and enterprise is very, very important. And finally, execution skills. Wherever it is, academia, industry, whatever it is, you got to have execution skills. The thought and the thinking is one piece, but if you're able to get it done, that's a very, very important piece. What I wanted to explain to you is, in short, you're a complete package, particularly as it pertains to industry, of knowledge, of skills, and of attitudes. And what do all these soft skills give you? The sport, the music, the dance, everything else gives you soft skills, which demonstrates a lot of your skills and your attitudes, okay? My daughter is a half marathon runner, okay? And she will, very proudly tell us how she finished this half marathon and that half marathon. Her goal is to do a full marathon. It just, it shows that, an ability to just, beat your timelines, make it extremely vital, that kind of, it shows a certain temperament. I am almost scared to do even a 5K, okay? So that's my story. So you can imagine. And the other thing I want you to do, and I genuinely think so, people in IIT are worth much more than they advertise that they're worth. So advertise what your skills are. If you don't do it, nobody will. In person, on social media, you're much more than the sum of your parts. You're not a degree holder from IIT alone. In addition, you've got this, you've got that, you've got that, you've got that. There are so many things that you have to communicate to people. I see this actually as like a multi-layered cake, okay? And I put this cake because all of us would love it, and therefore you say, wow, okay, that's nice. So whether it's a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or whatever it is, you're a core degree which you got from a leading institute of the world. That's one. That's the base of the cake. Add other knowledge to biology innovations, readings in biology, papers which excited you, papers which didn't excite you, opinions on what you think about one or the other, etc. That's the second layer. Some people love math and technology. If you do, add that layer, add a chemistry layer, add personal attributes, whether you love to cook or play the violin or do the half marathon or do 1 hour of service or whatever, And when I say 1 hour per week of service, it's something that I feel very passionate about. And I will throw that at you, and you got to think about what you can do. Spend 1 hour in a week, just 1 hour. But what you do it in a consistent basis. What I'm saying is, I spent in the year 2017, I spent 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. on a Monday afternoon walking into an orphanage in Bangalore where I lived till last year, okay, in Bangalore. And I used to teach 6 first grade students math, okay. They didn't understand English. I didn't understand Kannada, but both of us understood math. Can you imagine a first grader? 3 multiplied by 2 is equal to 6. It gave me immense pleasure. What I would urge you to do, if you've not already thought about it, is to say, spend 1 hour a week consistently. Do that for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 2 years. I've had several of my students do that. 1 hour a week is all I'm looking at. And you might want to consider do that, because it teaches you a ton of things. Okay, it teaches you initiative, it teaches you humility. When you're sitting around with those 6 girls in an orphanage, remember, so they're poor girls, and you're sitting around with small pencils which are not even 2 inches, and the orphanage authorities will not allow me to give them fresh pencils because they'll say that's all they've got to live with that. And then so they sit and do that, and they're desperately trying to find out how to do 3 plus 2 is equal to 5 or whatever, things of that nature. So I want you to identify, to discover your complete personality. Who are you? Find that out, okay? What does industry look for? And why am I reasonably equipped to do this? When I say industry, remember, I have spent time in sales, in marketing, in product management, in quality control, in quality assurance, in general management. Okay, and I've therefore interacted with people in research. When I'm in product management, you're talking to basic researchers, phase 1 researchers, phase 2 researchers, etc. You're talking to people in the manufacturing shop floor. I'm talking to QC people. I'm talking to QA people. I'm talking to all kinds of people. When I run a business, I'm talking to finance people. I'm talking to human HR issues. I'm talking to technology issues and IT. So I've seen the whole spectrum of a company, of industry. Okay, what does industry look for? Industry looks for problem solvers. Okay, people who have the ability to do a root cause analysis and then put a corrective and preventive action plan. You remember, we are humans. We make mistakes. All of us do. Okay, and when we make mistakes, as long as we have the ability not to treat the symptom, but to go into the root cause and find out the root cause analysis, and then do a corrective and preventive action, that's what industry looks for. Industry looks for people who have energy. Okay, they don't want boring people. They want people who have energy, people who have enthusiasm, people who have the drive. Industry looks for people like that. Industry looks for team players, because no one person can conquer the world. So therefore, you want people who can work with others, who are team players, who are unabashed in sharing ideas. You can't say, oh my God, I've got this idea, but I'm going to keep quiet. No, they want people to share ideas. Industry looks for good communicators, okay? And that's a huge necessity for industry. I would think it's a huge necessity for anything, for academia, for industry. Whatever you do, learn to communicate. Spend the time to understand what good communication is. And then it'll help you immensely. Industry looks for flexible people, because you don't know when things are going to get messed up, and therefore you look for flexible people who are adaptable. And industry looks for people who have a set of strong skills and a terrific attitude. The attitude being extremely important, because if somebody says, you know what, that's all we have, and you're going to do with it, you want people who have demonstrated the attitude. What industry does not want? People who sit down and complain. Okay, industry hates people who sit down and complain. They say, don't give me the problem, give me the solution. Industry hates people who always think the glass is half empty. They love people who think the glass is half full. Okay, so that's what industry looks for. Typical industry roles, I put down the whole thing, whether it is research roles, development roles, procurement roles, Everywhere, if you observe, there is a core degree which you have. And in addition to that, there are skills and attitudes that you have. And that's why it is important for you to understand what your skills and attitudes are. Understand it, articulate it, put it down on a paper, rehash it. Understand who you are, damn it. It's extremely important for you to do that, because that gives you, that's a passport for you to, if you know yourself so well, you're able to communicate that effectively, and therefore that opens doors which you otherwise would not have. And what I'm saying is a core degree can give you entry into sales, into marketing, into QC. I mean, a classic example is me, a chemical engineer with no clue, has been spent a long years in biology and been pretty reasonably successful, I would think. So very, very important that you do that. Oh, I'm sorry, what happened? I don't even know what happened. Just bear with me. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how do I, preparing for industry roles, okay, how do I do that? I understand my strengths, and I keep telling you this again and again and again. Ask friends, what am I good at? Because they can see things which you can't see. Ask teachers, ask family, ask co-workers. Probably the most important step is self-discovery. Okay? Ask them. If somebody says, tell me, if you were to describe me in 2 words, in 3 words, what would that be? Okay, and people will tell you, and you said, don't give me long stories here. I want to be in 3 words. Describe me in 3 words. Give them the time to do it, and believe me, and if you find consistent patterns which people see, that they say, wow, okay, I must be good at it. Okay, that kind of thing. I mean, the one word which I've always received often is energy. I mean, I've constantly, people say, oh my God, you got the energy. Okay, so that kind of thing. Whatever it is, ask them. Prepare a 60-second pitch. Okay, don't poo-poo it. Prepare that pitch. If somebody says, describe yourself, you heard of this elevator pitch, right? It's the same story. Describe yourself in 60 seconds. Prepare it. Practice and practice. It's not about you. It's about what value you can add, right? I mean, I'm not interested in your background. I'm interested in what you can do for me. But it doesn't apply to industry. If you're applying even for a faculty role in IIT Madras is saying, how can you help me to grow my business, to grow my education objectives? That's the goal. So it's not about you. It's about what value you can add. Prepare a response for, tell me about yourself. Industry executives are lazy, and therefore they will often walk into an interview with your resume and say, when they're buying time, tell me about yourself. Prepare that speech, 2 to 3 minutes, extremely important. Tell a story. Okay. Talk about the complete you in 120 seconds. You can do it. We all do it. Believe me, 120 seconds is a lot of time if you realize it. Okay. And it's very important that you do that, because it gives you a thorough grounding in who you are. Very, very, very important. Okay. List out all your strengths and then pick up the top 3 or 4. Rehearse it. It's like saying, I can add value in A, in B, and in C. Okay. And that kind of a thing. Even very late in my career, I would always walk into my supervisor or my boss's room and say, there are 3 things I want to discuss with you. And then I would go 1, 2. And if I stopped at the second, the boss would often say, what was the 3rd thing? Well, exactly, you're very, very finitely defining that conversation. Okay. So it's always a question of, it's like a bulletproof, thinking. My kids tease me saying, you're always thinking in PowerPoint presentations and bullets, but extremely vital. And finally, I say, have a can-do attitude. It's a question of saying, listen, I am graduated from the IIT Madras. What I know, I know. What I don't know, I'll be able to pick up in 60 to 90 days. So if somebody asks me an interview question and I don't know, it doesn't matter. You know what? I mean, I've got a core degree. I'll learn in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever. Okay, that kind of thing. If an idea appeals to you, explore. Don't be afraid of a failure. Remember, I told you the Silicon Valley culture very clearly. Try, fail, iterate. If you succeed, no problem, great. Otherwise, you iterate, tweak it, do it again. That kind of thing. So just do it, and I use the Nike slogan because it genuinely means that. Polish your LinkedIn. Don't, remember the social media is a huge thing of understanding who you are as a personality. People look at it, very important. So polish your LinkedIn. Use cold mails, cold contacts. Sometimes we are shy of doing this. Okay, we oh my God, he's the president of a company. How can we not do it, or how can we approach him? Or I'll give you a live example. Remember, I didn't come to California until about 9 months back. In September, I left Bangalore. Okay, and I was trying to do a piece of business with Sun Pharmaceuticals. Okay, Sun Pharmaceuticals, you may or may not be aware, is the fourth largest generic company in the world now for pharmaceutical products. Dilip Sangvi is the chairman of the company. I was representing a small company called Vistrian. We had some IoT solutions for their pharmaceutical factories. They have 40 factories all over the world making, tablets and injectables and what have you. And I had tried my best to go around talking to the head of QA, the head of production, all kinds of things to try and at least get them to listen to me. They wouldn't. So, I was approaching, I would say dilip.sangvi@sun.com. I've tried all kinds of stuff and nothing worked. So one day I said to myself, I prepared a small letter in a Word document, MS Word document, of course. And then what I did was I signed it, personally went to the local post office, okay, put a 5 rupee stamp, put that in the mail. And then this was, because I knew the corporate office address, put that to attention, Dilip Sangvi, personal and confidential. Put that in. 15 days later, I got a call from the executive assistant to Dilip Sangvi saying, this is about the letter, blah, 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 and then on. That led us to a whole series of meetings, okay? And then, we didn't get the business, but that's beside the point. I clearly got a tremendous amount of hearing. We could go to A plant, B plant, explain what we could do. The plant in Halol in Gujarat, the plant in Paonta Sahib in Punjab, etc., etc. What I want to say is, don't hesitate to use cold mails. Don't hesitate to use cold contacts. You're a graduate of IIT Madras. You're not a graduate of any institute, and therefore I think you have the ability, and you should have the confidence to pick up the phone and say, I'm a student at IIT Madras. I want to talk to somebody about blah 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 blah. And you know what? 7 times out of 10 they'll respond to you. I'm not saying 10 times out of 10. Okay, you have to approach the whole point from a value addition perspective. Approach from a position of strength. Remember, even if an industry is giving you a job, you have to approach it saying, I can add value doing this, doing that, whatever. Bounce back after a failure. I've talked to you enough about iterating. And when you're looking for a job search, it's only one thing that needs to open, and that leads to another, that leads to another, that kind of thing. Okay. And in a particular organization, hypothetically speaking, I'm just picking an example, okay? Roche, for example, top-notch in oncology research, okay? Or Bristol Myers, for example, which acquired Celgene, very good in oncology or in rheumatoid arthritis or whatever. When you want to get, you don't want to say, oh, I'll take that role or I won't take a role. Get into the party. When you join the organization, people get to see you and they understand your skills, and they're saying, wow, I can use this person here, I can use this person there. So it's almost like saying, I will join any company that I want to join, even as an intern. You know why? Because they get to observe you, which they never do over an interview. So that's very important. Get into the party. It's like saying, it's before I start saying what beer I'll drink, I'm going to say, wait a minute, let me get into the party, and then I'll decide. Once I'm in, they get to know me, then I'm able to talk. I like this and I don't like that. Vocalize your thoughts about moving forward. And that it shows a certain, if you like a certain role, you have to be articulated. People will not know otherwise that you have that you're interested in A role or B role. And you have to tell them why you're interested and why you can add value. Very, very important. So that's what I had. Okay, yeah, this is a random LinkedIn. Picked up a LinkedIn page from somebody. Okay, this is a person and I don't know this individual. I was doing this program for Christ University in Bangalore. Okay, the person was a master's student. In the LinkedIn site, the guy says he has courses in immunology, algae, ecology, astrobiology, and extraterrestrial life. Remember, in the LinkedIn site. Okay. In the LinkedIn side, the person also had a comment on Doudna's Nobel Prize. Okay, the person had comments on dinosaur paleobiology. Okay, the person had some comments on how he was a wildlife enthusiast. The person talked about math in high school, courses in Excel and artificial intelligence. So when I look at all this, I'm saying to myself, here is a candidate. Remember, I'm an industry person. Here's a person who's got a solid degree. In your case, it will be from IIT Madras, who's also given me a flavor of other interests of his or hers in the biology space, who seems to be liking math and therefore data, and therefore lends itself very well to that whole concept of data and analytics and AI, and who talks about four languages, and who talks about being a poet and a communicator. I'm saying, whoa, a rounded individual, somebody that I want to have in my organization, that kind of thing. So just to make the LinkedIn page of yours vibrant. That's the word to use for it. Okay. When somebody asks me about India, what they say, what is so special about India that you can't see anywhere in the world? You know what I say? One word: color. You can never find any country in the world with as much color as India. It's the most vibrant country in the world. Vibrant because color in dresses, color in holy, color in in the way every region is so different from every other region. It's the most vibrant, colorful thing that you can ever see. So, and that's what people look for in an industry. You're looking for the most vibrant. Make your social media presence vibrant. Make your own personal story vibrant. You know, when you're talking, when you're articulating everywhere, the key word is color and vibrance. That's all I have. 1 second, let me get out of this one, and then I think hopefully you should be able to. Yep. I'm open for questions if you have any. Does it make sense to you? Well, there are a couple of dimensions that I want to do. One, if I were to leave behind comments, discover yourself. There is nothing more important than that. You are not the same as your neighbor, your colleague, your friend, your whatever. Everybody has a set of unique skills. Actually, it's interestingly, Abdul Kalam made a presentation in IIT Madras in 2010. I think it says evolution of a unique you. That's the name of the presentation. Google it, you'll find out. It beautifully said, he said, each of us is unique. We have to discover ourselves. And so that's very important takeaway, that the way I see it, number one. Number two, present your entire self. The degree is a very important component because it's the base of the cake, but the icing on the cake makes it very, very, is as important as the base of the cake. When we finish eating a cake, we never talk about, oh, the base of the cake was fantastic. We always talk about, yeah, oh my God, I love that icing. I love the chips on top. I love this. I love that whole component. So extremely vital to present the entire you. Okay. And you're constantly communicating. You know, when I got into marketing many years back, people would always poo-poo and say, marketing is for duds. They're not for intelligent people. Everybody markets. The leading cardiovascular physician in Chennai markets himself or herself. Marketing is an integral part of life. We just have to accept it. Some people love it, some don't, but it doesn't matter because that's the way the people perceive you. You can manage perceptions a lot by the way people market themselves. I don't know that it makes sense, but you know, that's what I had. I'm genuinely bullish on the future of biology or biotechnology. I think the opportunities are huge. I'm sitting actually probably about 40 minutes drive from a place called South San Francisco. South San Francisco. I will read a message that somebody sent to me. If hopefully I'll be able to find it. And this is what that person talked about. This is a guy who's an ex IIT alumnus. Okay, he was the mayor of South San Francisco. He's the IIT alumnus, IIT Madras first batch. Okay, and this is what he says. 1 second, bear with me. Whoops, one. Yeah, South San Francisco is the home to the largest biotech cluster in the world, with over 200 biotechnology companies and 11.5 million square feet of biotech space on 500 acres of land. You remember I presented this Kathy Woods thing, who's an investor, remember, she has no understanding of biology, but you can see how bullish she is on the future of biology. Industry has taken recognition of the fact that biotechnology is the future. They will spend enormous amounts of money, and therefore careers for you will be automatically made up, whether it is here, whether it is in India, or whether it is in any other part of the world. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Because even today, even before all this, genomic sequencing happening, industry on an average spends, I'm talking only the pharma piece, which is a very narrow piece, okay? Spends roughly about $100 billion in research every year. Every year, mind you. If you look at the research budget of these industries, a company like Pfizer would spend $7 to $8 billion per year. And this is before all the genome sequencing hit. So it's a huge opportunity. You have an ability to present yourself extremely well. And what I went through was just a taste of what you can potentially do. I'm open to any questions if you have any.
In fact, Pradeep Gupta had visited us last year in the campus. Year before last. And we had a discussion with him on various initiatives that are going on here and things like that. Yeah,
absolutely. Pradeep Gupta was the, like I said, the first batch. So he was a mayor of South San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's just it. Any other questions for me? Oh, you really like the slide on potential role. I mean, I genuinely think, sometimes people limit themselves by their own mental thinking. You say, oh my God, I can't do that role. Why not? What the hell? Just try. Having come here, believe me, I have talked to various colleges on various subjects. I'm saying, hey, at the end of the day, if I can add value to your background, why not? I will do it. Okay. Because it's a wonderful way of leveraging everything that I've got. And I genuinely think within industry, it is not a question. There are researchers who lead companies. There are biologists who lead companies. I'm not talking of being a researcher. I'm just talking of moving up the echelons of management. Okay? There are technologists who lead companies. So you can do whatever you want to do. It's a question of mixing your core biology degree with other interdisciplinary components, and then you're in business. It's a question of saying, like the Usain Bolt video, good enough will not change the world, so you want to do more.
Suresh, the full question actually says that how different would the slide look if you were going to be talking about a PhD in the life sciences? Because many of these kids are in a quandary, like, should I pursue a PhD? Does it help me move up the ladder? Or, are there challenges? They always have this doubt about whether or not they should go in for a PhD. So any perspective that you lend would be helpful to them.
Sure. The PhD story is a nice story, okay? And the reason I say that is, remember, there are two, and again, I am for a minute assuming that you want to be heading whatever you're doing, okay? It doesn't matter whether it is industry or academia, okay? the way I would see it is, in your own mind, you can figure out some people are extremely good at what if questions. The curiosity level is high, significantly above average. Okay, and therefore they're much more curious people than some others. In your class, you can make out you're more curious, you're less curious. Are you willing to accept the world the way it is, or are you willing to do more? Are you willing to say, why don't I change? What happens if I do this? If you're significantly more curious, you're clearly the PhD kind. And just because you get a PhD, it doesn't mean that industry is knocked out. Industry option always exists for you, always. If you're in your mind want to do it, you can do PhD academia industry, you can do PhD industry, you can do PhD academia. I think it's a question of saying how much curiosity you have, number one, and number two, how much do you have the ability to spend 4 or 5 years of your life focusing on a particular area and getting a complete, thorough, robust understanding of that area. I don't know that I've explained myself. Let me give you another example. I have 2 children. One is a PhD, the other is not. The PhD kid of mine is extremely curious, constantly wanting to change what is the existing paradigm, constantly. I mean, he's the go-to person for me if I have to understand anything about COVID, because he'll analyze it, slice it, dice it. It's very robust analysis and presentation. Perfect for a PhD. When he told me that he wanted to do a PhD, because I was an MBA, I was like, wow, wait a minute, why do you need to do a PhD? But I understand that PhD are extremely scientifically thinking. They're very good at what they do. Okay, and that is very critical analysis and defining possibilities and moving forward. The non-PhD kid of mine is extremely over the top, general, accepts the world for what it is, and is not curious enough, and that kind of a thing. Both have their role in industry. You need the curious kind, you need the non-curious kind. And just because you have a PhD, that doesn't mean you limit yourself to be the CEO of a company. You can be the CEO extremely effectively. I don't know whether I've answered that question, but that's the broad perspective. Dig within yourself and say, are you truly so committed to your subject and to your, do you have the curiosity in you to probe something to so much of detail that you're amongst one of the best in the world or whatever? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
There is no one formula, okay? And just because you're a PhD doesn't mean industry is brought for you, not at all. Merck is a very, very popular company, right? Merck, the CEO of Merck for many years used to be scientists who came from research. Remember, in the healthcare space, there are only 2 things that matter in healthcare. I will not say this to other people, but one is research and innovation. The 2 is market. That's it. The rest of the organization is all, they're helping. They're the backstage people. Research, because if you don't have the research, you're a dead horse. I mean, there's nothing that you can do. Innovation is extremely vital, and so is marketing, because at the end of the day, you want to make it available to the customer. The customer is to buy your product, and therefore, or the solution, and therefore that funds more research and more science. That's the story. So, do I do research or do I, what? Then you dig in search of what am I? What do I want to be? You can always be the CEO of a company or CEO of, or a head of an institution. The question is, which route do I go through? And that depends on your individual personality. If you think you're more curious than the rest of the class, you think you're constantly pondering and saying this, and you have the ability to go through 4 years of a consistent, if that excites you, do a PhD. The world in general is going much more away from an MBA towards specializations and PhDs. That I can tell you. But that doesn't mean anything. It depends on individual strengths. Each person to his own. Anything else? Like I mentioned to you earlier, the more you ask, and maybe a question might not pop up right now, but the point is, the more you quiz, the more you gain. Or is it too baffling? There's one thing which I think, which I generally hear when I talk of a presentation, which is when I give this, people don't focus on soft skills. Everybody is so hardwired in the biology piece, the technology piece, the science skills. The non-science skills are extremely important. Extremely important. Don't underestimate it, particularly in industry, but I'm sure Professor Karthik Raman would
I
agree.
think that's very, very well said. I would, in fact, have you say the same thing to our PhDs even. Right? You might be a PhD, and even for a PhD, the soft skills outscore the regular lab skills or coding skills or whatever.
Exactly.
If you can't communicate your science, you're really not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. Remember, at the end of the day, we are human beings making an interaction.
Yeah.
That is that supersedes everything else, supersedes your science, supersedes everything else. If we establish a positive connect with that individual, then the floor is yours. If you don't establish a positive connect, it doesn't matter how good you are in your field. Have you ever listened to these one-on-one talks with Bill Gates? He makes it so simple, so easy. He's such an intelligent guy. He brings it down to the ground level. It takes a certain ability for you to tell that science to your first grade niece or nephew in a language they understand. It's huge. Any other questions? Silence, that's the other thing that I must tell you. I mean, give you this example. I used to be as silent as you are, okay? And then what happened was, and even after I did many years of selling in India, okay, I used to be very silent. And finally, when I spent several stints in the US. One stint of mine, I spent time in the US. I had a boss whose name is Patrick McDonald. Patrick would, after I would come out of a meeting, I would tell him, oh my God, we could have discussed this in the meeting, we could have discussed that in the meeting. And he would always, I used to call him Pat, so Pat would always say, how come you never express these feelings in a meeting? Okay, you got the idea, why the hell are you shutting up? And then because I didn't change behavior, you know what he did? We sat next to each other. I have a request of you. He was my boss. He said, next to me, you have to sit in the meeting. Under the table, he would kick me in the meeting to make sure that I open my mouth. And he said, the first time you got to tell, the divisional president was a guy called John Taylor. And he would say, I want you to say, I disagree with you, John. I want you to say that loudly. So the first time, I remember kicking one meeting, two meetings, and then I find, this is a weekly meeting, remember? And I said, I disagree with you, John. John Taylor had never heard me say, I disagree with you. Said, oh, really? Tell me what you have. And then I gave him my problem, and that made, it's extremely important to articulate. We might not say anything today, but I'm very, 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 very important that you share what you're thinking is good, bad, and ugly. Corporate teaches you one thing, which is if you like something, say it. If you don't like something, say it. Anything else?
So I've been chatting with the students on WhatsApp, and I know that they really enjoyed this. So I think that it's given them a really fresh perspective, and so thank you for that. And I think the students, I should tell them that Suresh has been kind enough to agree to talk to us as often as we want. So I think the next time around you should really go to him with a set of specific questions, and he can come back and talk to you on those, right? I think this really set the stage. He gave you like a very broad perspective of the whole industry and what you should be doing and so on. And now I think you can go back to him with very specific questions, like some like what Sankalpa asked, and I'm sure you have other questions. And when you start really thinking a lot more about what he said, I'm sure you'll really have a lot more questions. So,
absolutely. And I genuinely think, and PhDs sometimes think that they don't need industry. PhD, I know because I talk to my PhD son a lot. Okay, I know he brings in the PhD piece. I bring in the non-PhD piece, and there is a hell of a lot of learning you can do. The more you understand industry, the better you are. Honestly, can you imagine with the government help without Pfizer and Moderna, would you have a vaccine today? No. So that's the story, or AstraZeneca or whatever. It doesn't matter. So thank you. Thanks very much. If you have another question, I'm more than happy to answer anything later. Like I was telling Mr. Karthik Raman, and individually, collectively, any which way. If you guys want to sit down and have a small 6-member group or 8-member group or whatever you want. I mean, the resources available, use it the best way you can. Questions that you always wanted to ask but were afraid to ask. You never lose anything. You never lose anything. And I'm not saying my word is final. I'm giving you one perspective. Validate that. Make sure that is right. Okay? I have no axe to grind. So it's going to be, I think, I'm telling you the perspective of people. All right?
Yeah. I think it presents them with a very, very valuable perspective and data point to make that decision, so to speak. So
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay.
Take care then. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Suresh.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good night.
So before we log off, if everyone can turn on their videos for a small screenshot.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Yes, you can stop presenting as well, sir.
So what do I do? I should stop presenting. Stop presenting. Okay. So have I stopped presenting? I have, right? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
One of the also keys of marketing is that you've got to let you feel comfortable with yourself as a personality. Feel comfortable with yourself. Show your face to people. I mean, there's a lot that tech people have to learn from non-tech people. There's a hell of a. I'm genuinely saying that. And because it makes you the complete you, not the complete you without those pieces. And begin and find your strengths. There are huge strengths each of us have. We don't know. We don't know because we've never uncovered it.
Yes, sir, I've taken a screenshot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care and good night.
Yes, sir, thank you so much for the session. We really enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye.